Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, the Brooke Ashley, and today we are here to discuss The Real Housewives of Atlanta, Season 14, Episode 9. I know I'm a bit late, but I was away for a few days enjoying a gorgeous, beautiful, sunny weekend in the Hamptons. I'm refreshed, I'm well rested, and you guys know I ate well. I had all the lobster rolls, I had all the crab cakes, had all the wine, all the pasta. It is always a pleasure going to the Hamptons. I always have an amazing time. When I was younger, my parents would rent a house in Sag Harbor for a month. And so, all of our friends and family would be there. And now we have some family friends who have a house out there in Southampton, and we were there. So, a fabulous time, okay? Just being the embodiment of luxury, okay? But I'm back, I'm refreshed, like I said, and I am ready to talk about these housewives because I have so much to say. It was a jam-packed episode, and when I tell you that I cannot stand Marlo, I think that Bravo made a mistake giving her a peach because it has really showcased how terrible of a person she truly is. And I have to say, she low-key has an obsession with Kenya because if you claim that you don't like a person, then why are you always talking about them every chance you get? Like, it's weird. But y'all, like I said, a jam-packed episode, so let's just jump right on into it because we don't have a minute to spare. So we start this episode off with Sheree and her friend Faton being guests on Sheree's oldest daughter Tiara's podcast. Now, Sheree had mentioned earlier on in this season that Tiara's podcast is all about sex and dating and relationships. And so the podcast is called A Little Kiss and Tell. Now, while I don't care too much for Miss Sheree Whitfield, I will say that I do love her relationship with her kids, especially with her oldest daughter. And I have to say that it reminds me sort of me and my mom's relationship because we're like best friends. I can talk to her about anything. I mean anything. It's like no topic is off limits. Like, we're friends. And my mom is my girl. Like, she's got my back. I got her back. And you could tell that it's the same way with Sheree and her daughter. So anyhow, Tiara's bringing up this sex position called the landslide. Sheree's looking like, oh my gosh. And so it was so funny because Sheree's friend was like, girl, what's that? So while Tiara and her guest host are explaining what the position is, Tiara gets an alert on her phone from a blog about the whole mess between Sheree and Tyrone. Tiara's reading the blog post about how Tyrone stood Sheree up, and the reason why he did it was going to mess with his parole or whatever have you. And so Tiara's like, who wrote this? This isn't true. Sheree's pissed, and she says Tyrone wrote it because he needs some money. So when I tell you, Sheree started going off about Tyrone. She was talking about he's broke, how he needs money, how she feels like he scammed her the way he scammed all his other victims. Now I said, Sheree, let's hold on for a minute. Sheree, if you knew he was bad news, then why did you get with him in the first place? I mean, you could say what you want, sis, but it's clear that your self-esteem wasn't up to par. Because like I've been saying in these last 8 recaps, that Tyrone should have never had a chance with you in the first place. All I'm saying is, it's just a little too late for the shade about Tyrone. You're with the man for all these years, now all of a sudden he's this, he's that, he's broke, he's a scammer. But when people were saying that about him when you guys were together, you were like, oh, it's fine. No, he's not. He made a mistake. So miss me with all this shade that you have for him now. And not to get completely off topic, but that's why you should never put 100% trust in people because people love you to pieces, right? Until you guys fall out or you break up. And now, well, you were ugly anyway. I can't stand you. You're broke. It's like, well, you weren't saying that when you loved me, but now since we don't like each other, now it's all that. So it just goes to show you, don't take to heart what people say about you when they like you or when they don't like you. Now this next scene with Marlo at home with her nephews, not a whole lot happened, but we do learn that ever since they spoke to their mom, they've been acting out. Her oldest nephew is getting in trouble in school, talking back to teachers. He told one of his teachers that she doesn't make enough money to talk to him, something of the sort. And so when she asked him if that's what he said, he was like, no, I didn't say that. And I was thinking, I wouldn't be surprised if he did say that to a teacher, because that's how his aunt talks. Marlo is always coming for somebody's money, and that's always one of her go-to reads. And even though I'm not a parent as of yet, I do know that kids pick up the behaviors of their parent or guardian. So if they hear their aunt dismissing people on how much money they make, it wouldn't be surprising if her nephews are talking to people like that as well. And honestly, when Marlo was asking the boys if they wanted to go get therapy and they both said, no, we're fine, I would have said, I'm not asking you guys, I'm telling you guys, we're all going to get therapy, because it's clear that you guys are both unhappy for good reason, but we're going to get some help and just try to work through this as a family. So now we jump over to the next scene with Kenya at home, and Sanya comes over. So they're catching up, they're trying to get to know each other better, and Kenya's asking Sanya about her living arrangements, because we all know that Sanya's parents, along with her sister and brother-in-law and her nephews, live with her and her husband Ross. So while Kenya and Sanya are talking, Kandi calls Kenya, and so they're talking to Kandi. So now they're asking about the whole situation, because remember that crazy guy came to Kandi's house, and so Kandi says, it wasn't anything major, thank God. It was a 25-year-old young man who was saying that I invited him over to write some songs together, and pretty much the police gave him a warning about trespassing, and he could go to jail if he does it again. But nothing major, nobody was harmed, that's just what happened. That's very unsettling to know that there are some unhinged people out there who have nothing better to do with their time, and they want to stalk people and come to their homes like, what's wrong with you? But clearly this young man was not well, because we heard him say that he was Beyonce's cousin and how him and Kandi are good friends and she invited him for a songwriting session. So clearly all was not well up there. But I hope that he doesn't do it again, because if so, he needs to go to jail. So of course they start talking about the fight between Marlo and Kenya. And Kenya is pretty much over it. She's like, I've given Marlo so many chances. I'm just so tired. Like, it's a definition of insanity to keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result. And I have to say, in the case of Marlo and Kenya, Kenya should have never talked to Marlo again. That season that Marlo made that really nasty comment about how Kenya's mom wanted nothing to do with her. That should have been the end of the line right there. Because I know that I would have given Marlo my ass to kiss from then on. She could never speak to me again. I just hope that Kenya continues to pay Marlo dust from here on out. Don't even say hello to her, nothing. Like, Marlo needs some help. She's a very toxic person, because a minor disagreement should not lead to you calling your friends whores and hoes and throwbacks from the 90s and this, that, and the third. You're attacking their marriages and their looks. Like, it shouldn't come to that. And the fact that Marlo can go from 0 to 100 like that with her friends, that's a problem. And like Kenya said, me being sick and not being able to attend Sheree's little party that she threw at her house, it shouldn't have brought all that on. At the end of the day, we're still living in the age of COVID, okay? So you should be happy that your friend had enough sense to say, you know what, I'm feeling sick right now. I don't want to infect you guys, so I'm not going to be able to make it. But instead, you're mad and name-calling because she couldn't and accusing her of lying. It's never that deep, Marlo. Now, I have a lot to say about this next scene with Sheree. We see Miss Whitfield at home, and her friend Faton comes over, and we learn that Sheree and Faton have been friends for a few years. Now, I was Googling Miss Faton because it seems like Mama has a long coin herself. She jumps out of a Bentley truck. She had on that gorgeous fur, and it seems like she is dripped in labels from head to toe.
Bling, bling, bling. Bitches is mad.
I'm surprised production didn't tap Faton to be a full-time castmate, but maybe she might be for season 15, who knows. But in any event, they sit down to talk and have some champagne, and of course, Tyrone is the topic of conversation. So Sheree says that she has Tyrone blocked, doesn't talk to him, he can't reach her, and then she goes on to ask, how could he be in love with her and do that to her? And the answer to that is, Sheree, he didn't love you. Because nobody who loves you would do that. This was a game to Tyrone. It was amusement while he was in jail. He had no interest in furthering any sort of relationship with you once he got out. Then Sheree continues on by saying that she feels duped and she feels like he robbed her emotionally. And then when I tell you I was not expecting it, but Sheree started breaking down. And you could tell that she was not fake crying because she had that tissue covering her face like she was just buried in Faton's arms. She was not trying to have the camera see those tears coming down. But Mama was sobbing hysterically. I'm not going to hold you. Despite my feelings about Sheree over the years, I've always thought that she's a very nasty personality, very delusional, but I actually felt sorry for her in this moment because she was really upset. It's evident that she really did fall for this man because when she said that she envisioned her life with him and how they were planning to spend the rest of their lives together, and I mean, he was the love of her life, I was like, wow. Again, I'm just so confused as to how this even happened in the first place. What was he saying to her on those phone calls? Because I can't imagine that you fall this deep in love with somebody who is behind bars. There aren't any dates, there are no flowers, you're the one putting money on his books, but yet she fell in love with him hard. I'm just confused. I said, Sheree is out here looking and sounding like the people from Love After Lockup. So Sheree finally stops crying. Faton is trying to comfort her, and she says, you weren't stupid, Sheree. You fell in love. It happens to all of us. I said, girl, speak for yourself. I have more than enough common sense and self-esteem to know not to fall in love with somebody behind bars. Talking about they're the love of my life. I'm being silly. I know what Faton meant. She meant that we've all been in love. We've all been stupid for somebody before. But there are varying degrees to stupidity, okay? Let's start there. Because I've seen some stuff on social media where people were taking out loans for men and buying them cars and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, no. We haven't all been there, okay? No.
No.
The love has never been that deep for me. So Sheree brings up what her life coach told her, how she needs to put herself first. And then she says, you know, I'm just confused, like, how could I ever date somebody who is beneath me anyhow? And I'm thinking, Sheree, that's a simple answer. Low self-esteem. There's really no other way to answer that. Because if your self-esteem was as high as you claimed it was, you would have never looked Tyrone's way. And then when Sheree told Faton that going forward, she wants her and all her other friends to be honest with her, when I tell you, I have stopped saying anything. Because a lot of people like to say, be honest with me if I'm making a bad decision. And when you tell them, they get angry at you. You're grown. If you like it, I love it. But don't ask me for my opinion on things because you're not going to listen anyway. You're going to get upset and I don't have the time. The only thing I have for you are restaurant recommendations, great places to travel, great hotels to stay at, how to spend some money. That's all I got for you. Now we flip to this next scene with Drew and her mom, and I have to say, I said Drew is something else with all these profits We remember Prophet Lot from last season and that whole mess. So anyhow, Drew and her mom are out at the nail salon getting manis and petties and some champagne. And when I tell you, I thought her mom was so cute with the purple hair. I loved it. I said, I know that's right. So they're catching up, and Drew brings up that Ralph is writing a book about step parenting. And I want to know, it seems like Ralph has 11 jobs. One day he's in tech, the next day he's in music, now he's writing books. I'm like, what? And I thought it was very strange when Drew was like, yeah, Mom, I had no idea he was writing a book either. I'm like, you're his wife. You should have been the first to know that he was writing a book. Like, again, I really don't see Drew and Ralph's marriage making it because I really don't think that Ralph wants to be married. It just seems like he's always doing things in secret. Drew is always in the dark. She's always walking around on eggshells. I mean, it's just a hot mess. But anyhow, Drew's mom brings up if Ralph has any intention on finally adopting Josiah. So Drew says that they've had this conversation multiple times in marriage counseling. It's one of the sticking points. And pretty much Ralph is kind of avoiding adopting Josiah because he says that it's a man thing because since Josiah's father is still here, that he doesn't really want to like try to take the place of Josiah's father. But Drew's whole point is, well, you pretty much are like his dad because Josiah's father is not around and you've stepped up to the plate, so you might as well make it official and just adopt him. Now, I just want to pause for a minute because how are you writing a book on how to be a good step parent when you have a situation where you can adopt your stepson and you don't want to do it? How are you advising anybody else when you're in a bit of a pickle yourself? Like, make it make sense. You could see that Drew's mom was not here for this either. She was like, well, I thought that he was going to adopt Josiah after you guys got married and you changed your last name to Pittman. Like, I was just expecting for him to make it official. And I said, Drew's mom, I feel the same way too, because I'm just in shock that Ralph is stalling with this whole process. Because I remember, and I hate to bring her up, but when Kim Zolciak married Croy adopted Brielle and Ariana. Like immediately. So I'm just surprised that Ralph wouldn't do the same. So now they change gears in conversation, and Drew's mom plays a message from Prophet June. Pretty much the message says that there's an adversary in Drew's friend circle, and it's a woman, and she needs to watch out. And then Prophet June ends the message by saying that Drew needs to pray the prayer of protection. I said the only adversary in Drew's life is Ralph. I said she don't need to worry about the rest of these women in this group. She needs to worry about him. She still doesn't know who he was in Tampa with. Drew is one of those women where she has so much smoke for other women, but none for her man. And I cannot stand that. Like, that pisses me off so badly. I do not like being around women like that. Women who blame women for everything under the sun. I can't stand that. But their man is out there lying and cheating on them, and they're mad at the other woman. How does that work? Be mad at your man. But let me not go off on a tangent because we'll be here all day. So since Drew is super rattled by the message that Prophet June just left her, she tells her mom about the mess between her and Sanya. She says that her and Sanya were great friends, but now Sanya has completely turned against her and how Sanya is fake. So now Drew goes on to bring up the whole Drop It With Drew event and how Sanya came to her and Ralph about her marital issues, about how she's unsure about having another child. And she goes on to say, and yeah, I didn't like how she told Ralph that she doesn't know how busy me and him both are. Like, who says that? No, I said, Drew, Ralph only told you part of the story because Ralph was the one who brought that up first. He made the snarky comment saying, well, you know, me and Drew are busier than you and Ross, so if we can handle 3 kids, and surely you can handle another kid. So I said again, Drew, ask Ralph what he said to Sanya, because she only said that as a reply to what your husband said. And I found that comment that Ralph made to her to be very rude. And how do you know if you're busier than somebody else? You don't know Sanya and Ross's schedule. Like, what are you saying? Now, while I do feel like Sanya has been very fake and very two-faced towards Drew, I do think that Drew was kind of blowing that comment that Sanya made to Ralph about being busy or busier than them out of proportion. It wasn't that deep. And like I said, Ralph was the one who said that to Sanya first. So if you want to check anybody, check your husband. And I couldn't stop laughing because Drew's mom was like, what kind of friend is that? We need to start rebuilding the village. I said, I hate to break it to you, ma'am, but there is no village on Real Housewives of Atlanta. It is every woman for herself. Now we head over to the next scene with Marlo. She's doing some furniture shopping since she's building her new house from the ground up. And she says that she wants to be prepared because her house is going to be ready in the next 12 to 14 months. So anyhow, while she's looking around, Sanya and Sheree join her. So she's asking them for pointers. She's like, what's going to be the most expensive room in my house? And Sheree says it's probably going to be the living room. We find out that Sheree's living room cost her about $40,000. She has $10,000 chandeliers. The furniture is top notch. And so she says that that's probably going to be what Marlo's is going to cost as well. And inquiring minds still want to know how Sheree was able to finish paying for Chateau Sheree in the first place, seeing that she was off the show for many years. But that's another story and another video for another day. So anyhow, they sit down to talk, and of course, Marlo brings up her fight with Kenya. She says that that's not the Kenya that she's known, how her and Kenya have gotten into it many times over the years, and Kenya has never acted like that. And it's like, Marlo, what do you not understand? You push people to their breaking point. You are very nasty, very abrasive. You just go for the jugular. You really try to attack somebody and their character and their reputation. And then you're mad when they lash out at you. Like, I'm just not understanding why you're so surprised as to why Kenya is just so over you. And I want you to stop trying to read people because you're not a good reader. Because when you were trying to say, I don't know, is Kenya on some weight loss pills or something? Because obviously something's not right. And it's like, why would she be taking weight loss pills? She was on Dancing with the Stars. Her body is snatched. She works out on a regular basis. So why would she be on weight loss pills? Like, you just sound so dumb. Your reads always fall flat. I still rewatched that episode when Eva was on and she read you down that bus when you guys were in Japan and you were sitting on that bus quiet. And it's what you deserve because you always try to comfort somebody. Then when they eat you up, now you want to cry and play victim. But anyhow, Sanya interjects and says, well, I talked to Kenya the other day and she feels blindsided by the way you came at her, saying that she was lying about being sick. Then Sanya continues to say that at the end of the day, Marlo has to stop hitting below the belt. So now Marlo says, well, I can't do that. Like, I'm going to need some help for that. And it's like, no, you don't want to stop. You enjoy getting a rise out of others. You enjoy saying such awful things about somebody to hurt them. And I said the jokes truly write themselves because when Marlo said, you know what Kenya's problem is? She just can't take me. I said, Marlo, let's not do that. Because I can tell you right now, Kenya does not want to be you. She's not trying to copy you. She's not jealous of you. So please stop. All you have are things. And I'm going to leave it right there. But I can assure you, sis, nobody is jealous of you, and especially not Kenya. And you know in your heart of hearts that you don't believe that lie either about Kenya can't take you. So they get off the topic of Kenya, and Marlo now brings up the issues that she's been having with her nephews. They have been acting out so bad. I mean, her oldest nephew, Michael, punched a hole in the wall. They had all their dirty clothes like sprawled out on the floor, potato chips under the bed. She said that some of her stuff from her room was under their bed, just craziness. So she says that she freaked out for a moment and she kicked them out the house and send them to live with her younger sister for 30 days. So Marlo's getting emotional. She says that she can't take it anymore. She's at her breaking point. The boys are wearing her thin, and she feels like she's failing them. Then she goes on to say that she always worries about them being under her care. Like, God forbid something were to happen to them, it will fall on her. So Sheree's like, look, Marlo, I understand it's a scary time in this world, especially for Black kids. But as a mom of 3, while my kids have gotten on my nerves at times, I have never taken a break from them. I understand that she's stressed out. I think anybody would be. But I'm like, there has to be a better way. I don't have all the answers, especially not with situations like this. But I think it's very sad. I hope that things are able to get better with Marlo and her nephews and they can come to some resolution. I personally think that they all need therapy and they need to start with that. But I think that things might be worse since she kicked them out. And if they come back to live with her, they might have resentment towards her for doing that. But I have to say, I'm happy that the boys are safe. They are at a relative's house. The way Marlo made it sound, I thought she had kicked them out and they were out on the streets. So now we get to the night of Sheree's sexy slumber party. And the whole purpose of this party is to have a girls' night, have fun, let their hair down, and for her to forget about Tyrone and remember to put herself first. Now, I will say that while I get on Sheree for being cheap, she definitely did spend a nice coin on this party. We saw the party planner there. She had the balloons. The decor was beautiful. And that food looked amazing. Because you guys know how I feel. Don't invite me over and you don't have any food. I also like the theme of this party. Everybody had to come in wearing some variation of nude. So all the ladies are showing up, and I was screaming because when Kandi showed up, Faton was like, girl, come here, I have to show you something. And she had this incense for your vagina, and she was planning on giving that to Sheree later on in the party. So at this point, everybody's at the party except for Marlo and Drew. So while they're waiting for them to show up, we have Sanya asking Faton how she feels about Drew. So Faton says, well, she did attack me, but I got something for her. Baby, we find out that Faton and her friend did a background check on Drew and Ralph. And come to find out, they have 12 different aliases. And one of Ralph's aliases is a woman's name. Now, we know how it is on these shows. Anytime anyone ever admits that they did a background check on any of their castmates, all hell breaks loose. I said, Faton, I don't know if you want to share that information just yet, but it's evident that you want to be on this show as a full-time cast member and you're auditioning, so I'll let you have it. Now, Kandi was definitely being shady because she was like, well, sometimes folks do that when their credit isn't good. And when she said that Ralph reminded her of Tommy from Martin, like, nobody knows what he does. So now we see Drew arrive, and it's so funny because she was wearing the same exact pajama set as Sheree. I said, what is up with Drew wearing the same exact outfit as somebody else? Because she was wearing the same dress that Kenya wore a few seasons ago to Brooklyn's birthday party a few episodes ago, and now she's wearing the same exact outfit as Sheree. Like, it's just so funny. But anyhow, Drew says that she's nervous walking into this party, and she's trying to figure out who the adversary is in this group. I'm like, Drew, if you don't stop being so dramatic. And then Marlo finally arrives, and it was so funny because Kenya said, oh, it looks like Sasquatch with a lace front just showed up. One thing about Kenya, she's very quick with that shade. Oh, and last but not least, we have former housewife Lisa Wu show up. We learned that Sheree and Lisa Wu are still great friends. They still hang out. And Lisa Wu is happy to be in the mix. Now, let me just stop and say that it seems like Lisa is desperate to get back on somebody's show. Now, I remember that Lisa Wu's last TV appearance was on Hollywood Divas. She was on the final season with Countess Vaughn. she made that awful music video. But that's neither here nor there. And I think Malika was on there. Malika, Khloe Kardashian's best friend, and Golden Brooks, and someone else. But that's the last time Lisa Wu has graced any of our screens. Did you guys know that Lisa Wu's first husband is Keith Sweat, and they have 3 boys together? I always thought that her first marriage was with Ed Hartwell, so I was shocked to find out that that was her second marriage. But anyhow, we'll talk about that another time. One more thing. I was a bit surprised that they had fired Lisa Wu after season 2, because remember season 2, her and Ed were downsizing since he had been cut from the NFL, which means money was tight and they were about to get foreclosed on that huge mansion that they had in the first 2 seasons. But I just felt like she would have had a good storyline for season 3, because we would have seen the financial issues and her and Ed getting a divorce. But again, I digress. So anyhow, since everybody's there, it's time for them to do their paint and sip. Now, it was so funny because Sheree had the easels all set for them, and she had the naked models there. So while everybody's painting the models, we see Drew and Sanya talking, and of course their conversation goes left. Drew addresses the comment that Sanya made to Ralph about how they're not that busy, and Sanya's like, I was just joking, I didn't mean it as shade. And honestly, I didn't think that Sanya said it in a shady way either. If anybody was being shady, it was Ralph. Because he was one who said, well, you guys aren't busier than us. Like, we're 10 times busier than you guys, and we have 3 kids. So when she responded back to him, she wasn't rude. And I didn't understand why Drew was that mad. I'm like, girl, you're blowing this out of proportion. And then Sanya was trying to explain herself, and she had mixed up Drew and Ralph's name. And so Drew got mad about that. I was like, Drew, you know what she meant. It happens sometimes. She didn't mean anything by it. And I was so happy when Sanya said, you know what, Drew, I'm not doing this with you tonight. I'm here to have a good time, so bye. I was like, girl, I would have done the same thing. I'm honestly sick and tired of this whole back and forth between Drew and Sanya. Either be friends or leave each other alone. But it's every episode they have an issue. So they finished with the paint and sip, and now it's time for them to eat. And when I tell you that this table was decorated so beautifully, I said, Sheree, you did that. So anyhow, they're all eating, but we see Marlo going to the bathroom to wash her hands. Kandi was already in the bathroom, and so they start talking. So since they're in the bathroom, we can't see them, but we can hear them because they're mic'd up. So Marlo's saying, Kandi, you know what's going on with me. I kicked the boys out the house. So Candy's like, wait, what? So now they go into Sheree's massage room to have a heart-to-heart, and Marlo starts talking about everything that's been going on for the past few months with her nephews. So Marlo's going on, and then she says, so that's why if you feel like I'm being so harsh on you and Kenya, it's because I'm dealing with all this stuff. Now, yes, you can be dealing with stuff, but that does not give you the right to take your anger out on your friends. I am sick and tired of folks using that as an excuse to lash out for no reason. And Marlo, what was your excuse before all this was happening? You've always been a very miserable soul. What you're doing is a very weak attempt at gaining sympathy and not taking accountability for your awful behavior. And Candy's nicer than me because I would have said, Marlo, let me stop you right now. While that's sad about what's happening, that does not give you the right to talk about me the way you've been talking about me. And I feel sorry for you, but I don't want to go forward with a friendship with you. That's what I would have told her. Marlo has a very hard time taking ownership of what she says. And I noticed that she's one of those people where she's really awful to you, but she doesn't want you to be mad at her. Like it seems like it's a trigger for her when people are mad at her. And she was like, you know, I know that you're mad at me and stuff like that. And it's like, but Marlo, you cursed me out. You called me all sorts of sluts, bitches, hoes, XYZ. And now you're upset that I'm mad at you? Like, how does that work? So Kandi says, look, Marlo, I'm not going to lie to you. I was very mad at you a few days ago, but I definitely understand where you're coming from, and I have sympathy for you. So they hug it out, And like I told you guys, Kandi is a lot nicer than I am because that wouldn't have happened. All I would have had from Marlo was, I'm sorry to hear that, but I don't want to be your friend, and that's all I got for you. Because you're not going to sit up here and continually disrespect me. So Kandi and Marlo join everybody at the dinner table, and now Sheree makes a speech about how she wants to be more vulnerable, and she wants to stop being sad about Tyrone. So they all cheer her on. Sanya says that Sheree is too fine to be in a funk over this man who just got out of prison. And they all agree. So now Kenya suggests that they all go around the table and play a game where everybody has to pay a compliment to somebody in the group. We see everybody going around paying each other a compliment. Lisa Wu says that we go through stuff, but at the end of the day, we're all here for each other. Then, of course, it's Drew's turn, and she has to throw some shade about how she mostly likes everybody at the table. Of course, that's shade towards Sanya and Faton. And it's like, Drew, can't you just play nice? Like, you had to do that? And I loved how Kenya was calling her out. She was like, no, Drew, that wasn't a compliment. And then Drew says that she loves everybody, even her enemies. And Kenya's like, nope, that wasn't it either, Drew. Like, try again. And at this point, Kenya was 3 sheets to the wind because she already had 5 drinks. And no judgment over here because I have been there many times. And now you have Lisa Wu jumping in, and she's talking about how you need to love your enemies because if you don't forgive people, then they're going to have you in bondage, and that's not right. And Lisa was definitely overserved because she was rambling. I was like, girl. I mean, the speech was kind of slurred. And then it was so funny because Lisa Wu kept interrupting Sanya, and then her and Sanya got into it. And Sanya was like, girl, calm down. You're sitting up there acting like the drunk auntie at the picnic. So now Drew and Faton get into it. Drew says to Faton that she did not appreciate the way she was talking about her husband. And so Faton says, look, I said what I said. I was repeating what Anthony told me, and I'm not apologizing to you about it. I said, okay, Faton, you better stand 10 toes down on what you said. And so Drew is still angry. And now Kenya interjects and says, Faton, let's talk about what you told us earlier about how you did a background check on her and Ralph, and you found out that they have 12 aliases. So now Drew is really angry. She's like, wait, what? Are you stalking me? Like, why are you doing a background check on me? Now, Faton, you had to know that that information was going to get out at this dinner because this is a very messy group and you're on a very messy show. So I would have kept that to myself and just revealed that at a later time. But I was just like, you know, Sheree's trying to have a nice slumber party, and here y'all go about to turn it upside down. And what made this argument between Drew and Faton so funny was because Faton was drunk as well. And when Drew was like, Faton, sober up. And Kenya was like, yeah, girl, you know, we're all a little drunk. And so Kenya falls to the floor being silly. And I mean, I was in tears. I said, Kenya being this shit-faced is hilarious. So now Kenya brings up how one of Ralph's aliases is the name Danielle. And she's like, who's Danielle? So Drew says, Danielle is one of our assistants, okay? That's the only plausible explanation for why it's showing up as Danielle. Now, I mean, that could be true. Who knows? I always feel like there's something a little shady when it comes to Ralph Pittman, but if she says that it's probably because their assistant is named Danielle, then I'll just go with that. So at this point, everybody's pretty tipsy or just drunk, and they're all in good spirits, laughing, you know, just being silly. And it was so funny because Kenya was like, y'all, I have one more question. Is my wig on straight? And honestly, I didn't even notice that that was a wig. Like, I didn't clock it at all. I thought it was her hair. So now the dinner's over, and it's time for them to do the vaginal cleanse with the incense that Faton brought for Sheree. So they have Sheree change into this caftan, and now she does a little ceremony, and I couldn't stop laughing because Sheree said, now I don't know if it's the alcohol or if it's the incense, but either way, I feel a tingle. And you know those spas that they offer those vaginal steams? That's what this whole thing reminded me of. The editing for this season has been A1 because this scene reminded me so much of last season of Potomac when they were all at Giselle's house for her little backyard party and that was all a mess. That's the vibes I got with this scene. And it was so interesting because while they were having fun, you have Drew sitting there at the table and she's like, I want no parts of this. It feels like witchcraft. Like, I don't want to join in on any of this. And it's like, Drew, must you be so dramatic about everything? So the scene ends with Kenya wanting to give a toast to Sheree. And of course, Marlo can't help herself. And like the weirdo she is, she's like, can we all toast the fact that Kenya can finally embrace the fact that she wears wigs sometimes? And it was like, why do you care so much? Like, what's your obsession with Kenya's hair? It's just very bizarre. And then when Marlo said to Kenya, you know, it shows that your self-esteem is up. And it's like, you really can't help yourself. If you claim that you don't like Kenya, you don't want to be around her, then why are you saying anything to her? Marlo has a very childish mentality. It's like she has arrested development. It's very bizarre. You can't stand this person, but yet at the same time, you're fixated on them. And you, of all people, are the last person to talk about anybody having some self-esteem. Your self-esteem is very low. And if you didn't have the material items that you had, Lord knows where you would be in life. You're not a secure person. And it shows. And I loved how Kenya paid her dust and said, girl, I'm the moment, okay? So I don't know what you're talking about. And then, of course, here goes Marlo exhibiting the same behavior that they're always telling her about. She wants to go for the jugular and say, well, you're not the moment to Mark. And it's like, let's start with the fact that, Marlo, we've yet to see you with a boyfriend. You've been a friend of the show for years, and we have yet to see you with a man. Every time somebody asks about your love life, it's always some phantom man that we never heard about or seen, because he's not real. And then, of course, Marlo has to make the moment about herself, so she announces that she wants to take them all on this road trip in the next few days. And I couldn't stop laughing because at this point, Kenya was just so carefree and so drunk. She started running around Sheree's house, and Drew and Sheree had to chase after her. But they all toast to Sheree one more time, and that's where the episode ends. Guys, a fantastic episode. Atlanta is really giving what the girls said it was supposed to have gave in the words of Rolling Ray, and I'm here for it every single Sunday. And yeah, as you can see, I had a lot of thoughts about what went down, and I won't be surprised if we see Lisa Wu coming back in some capacity, because listen, say what you want, but the exposure, the notoriety, the fame, and that money, who wants to leave that? And it's apparent that Lisa Wu could use a check and some attention. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching my recap. I hope you all enjoyed, and you guys already know what to do. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all later. Bye.